The thermometer in the Las Vegas Valley had reached triple digits at 101 Fahrenheit on the afternoon of Thursday, September 17, 1998, about 7 degrees above the usual high for mid-September. Nothing else out of the ordinary happened that day, other than boxer Mike Tyson, at a luncheon, dodged reporters who queried him about his battle to retain his right to fight in Nevada. It was a quiet news day. That is, until 3:54 that afternoon, when Sandra Renee Murphy placed an impassioned call to emergency 911. Her husband had stopped breathing, she told a 911 operator. Her husband was in fact her live-in boyfriend, 55-year-old Lonnie Theodore Ted Binion. Rick Tabish, a Missoula, Montana businessman who would later become a suspect during the Binion investigation, had called Sandy Murphy from his cell phone at 3:47 p.m. The call lasted 1 minute, according to phone records presented at trial. 7 minutes later, Sandy dialed 911 from Ted's 2408 Palomino Lane home he shared with Sandy. As soon as she told the emergency 911 operator her husband had stopped breathing, the call disconnected. The dispatch operator radioed for police units and paramedics to immediately respond to the Binion estate. A minute later, at 3:55 p.m., the call for service was received by the Las Vegas City Fire Department. At 3:57 p.m., paramedic Kenneth Dickinson, with a partner, arrived at the scene first, with siren blaring and lights flashing. Sandy Murphy stood outside the front door, crying and waving Dickinson to the house. It's not unusual for paramedics to arrive at a death scene to find relatives and loved ones hysterical. A second paramedic drove an ambulance into the circular gravel-covered driveway as Dickinson got out of his ambulance. A hysterical blonde woman ran toward us yelling, "He's not breathing! He's not breathing!" Dickinson later said. While one of the EMTs tried to calm Sandy, Dickinson and his partner went into the house and found Ted lying on his back on a sports mat in the den. An empty medicine bottle was beside him, and paraphernalia, including foil wrappers, balloon remnants, and a knife, were in the bathroom. He was partially covered with a comforter. When we hooked up the monitor, Dickinson said, he was flatline all the way. About that time, police officers with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department also began arriving at the house. Officers walked around the house, making observations. They found heroin paraphernalia in a bathroom, but they weren't terribly suspicious. It was no secret, and had been well publicized, that drugs had already cost Ted Binion his share in his family's horseshoe club. This fateful story begins in a pricey Las Vegas topless club in 1994, when Ted Binion, a high-paying customer, meets Sandy Murphy, a young California surfer girl turned exotic dancer. Binion, charmed by the happy, outgoing, pretty, and sexy Murphy, almost immediately moved her into his million-dollar estate in an upscale Las Vegas neighborhood. He lavished her with credit cards, limousine rides, expensive meals, and a top-of-the-line luxury Mercedes-Benz. That first meeting would forever change their destinies. Murphy would wind up in prison. Binion would end up dead. This wasn't the death of just anybody. This was multimillionaire Lonnie Ted Binion, heir to the estate of Benny Binion, who helped mold Las Vegas. Ted was a notorious former casino owner with ties to the mob who ultimately was banned from his own casino, the Horseshoe Club. It was a downtown Las Vegas landmark started in 1951 by his Texas gambler father. Ted was a product of his father. He too, like Benny before him, was known to lead a fast and sometimes wild lifestyle. A cloud of grief settled over the Binion compound as family members, friends, neighbors, acquaintances, police, fire department personnel, photographers, reporters, and attorneys converged upon the estate. This wasn't the first tragedy for this infamous family. First, Ted's older sister, Barbara, had died in 1983 from a drug overdose, an apparent suicide. And Benny, the patriarch of the family, had died in 1989.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.